Welcome everybody to the last episode of the year of That Geek Show. I'm your host, Yifat Cohen, and we are live speaking with you everywhere online, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, not LinkedIn, because we're out of LinkedIn. But if you actually want to be part of the conversation, this is the place to go. thatgeek.com/live. Hop on in right below this video. There is a button you can hop in and be part of the conversation in real time, because today we are closing the year of I'm That Geek with something super, super special. How can you scale your business and serve thousands of people in a day without it taking over your soul, taxing your life, and being like a dread that you don't want to get to? So to do that, we have my very good friend, Thorsten. Thorsten, am I saying this right? Kurtz, is that right? Yes. Okay, so Thorsten is the guy who grew his business from 0 to 8 figures in 3 years by doing cold traffic, right? And webinars. And so that's what we're going to dive in today. If you can see his lower third, he is the founder of very successful German companies that you've never heard about. So Thorsten, before we dive in, let's talk a little bit about, the before, right? Like what was life before the 8 figure and like the journey that it took you to get there? And are you muted? You are muted. Yeah, there we go. Here you are. Da, da, da,
There you go.
da. Here you are. Yay.
Eva, thanks for the lovely introduction. So the journey before was basically me spending a lot of time at university, not really knowing what I did there, studying anything from computer science to psychology, while also managing to spend over 5,000 hours in digital marketing. And then it was a classical entrepreneurial story of really failing very hard at my first project, which took me over 2,500 hours. It was something I was really passionate about. And it was a self-help way for people to cure themselves of depression that actually worked, but I never got it in front of more than 20 people. So after like this really soul-crushing experience, I decided I'm going to double down on how to make cold traffic work, even in the hardest of circumstances. And this is how, after a couple of years, we perfected strategies to do just that and scale to over 250,000 customers in less than 2 years.
You just said something like super, like right there, right on case, that I think a lot of people are really struggling with. They have a solution, they know it works, and they can't get it in front of people,
Yeah.
right? And then they go and they take all these courses and reading all these articles and YouTube videos, and they can't get it in front of people. So how did you manage to kind of like, oh, I can't get it enough in front of people, to, wow, this is actually working?
So the problem with getting it in front of people is being able to afford the advertising with the money you make from the proceeds of the entire operation. That was my goal. I was so dedicated to the cause that I was willing to do it basically for free as long as I would have been breaking even on the front end, as we call it. But I couldn't. So I realized, okay, I need three things. I need to get better at copywriting in order to like motivate people better. And I need to be better at traffic, and I need to get the funnel right. But then I realized there is a fourth thing that was more important than all of those three combined. And that was being able to take people that never heard of me and empower them to the point where they know, even with difficult topics like depression, where people aren't even motivated, or weight loss, where people have heard 400,000 solutions before and don't trust you, to get them to the point where they build enough trust and enough motivation in themselves to see a transformation happening in real time, and then be able to act today. Because if you can't motivate people to act today, whatever that is, free opt-in, sign up for a webinar and actually appear, hop on a phone call or anything like this, you already lost before you started. And it took me 3-4 years to put all this together. I built a team around it. I was very fortunate, used a lot of law of attraction principles, and somehow they worked in order to actually get the right people at the right time, people that were super unlikely to get. For some existed only 3 or 4 people like this in the world, but also had I saw what they could do and saw how to apply it to the business. And long story short, We used direct response copywriting, very good ads that scale. And then in the end, we could deliver something where people were already like getting something out of the experience that other people would just call the sales process that was beneficial to them, and then still were able to make a really decent profit on it and therefore reach over 25 million people who went on our webpage that we just bought. And in Germany, that's huge. Like
Yeah.
market size is a tenth of the American market, and had over 4 billion impressions, which sounds insane because it's like half the world's population, right? And we were like 5 people running this company out of our living rooms, proverbially, like literally laptop, living room, something like this.
So before I dive into that, Lisa is watching us, Lisa Patrick, and she says this is the rabbit hole of do it yourself, right? Where you're just trying to figure it out, and then finally figuring it out, and to the point where you actually have to grow a team to help you with that. So we'll dive into that. And she says it makes cold audience feel like they belong. I think that is really the key, right? Like right now, the internet really kind of like matured. At the beginning of the internet, it was very easy to send an email or put up an ad, and everybody would be like, "Oh, new thing, right? Webinar," and just jump on it. And now that it's a little bit more matured, it's harder to gain the trust of your viewers, right? Especially with ads and cold traffic. So what's the magic sauce in that? How do you take cold traffic, right, and work to build the trust so that it's actually an experience and they trust you and they take the next step?
You have to first, trust is the most important ingredient to convince people to act later. But the first most, like before that comes actually putting in time to find out what's still engaging to those people, especially since they've heard a lot of messages, a lot of ads, a lot of sometimes ridiculous claims that people have hammered them with, and where they already think like, I don't believe this for a second. And you have to find a sweet spot between still being intriguing and then also getting them to believe that this is something that's achievable. And I don't want to be this vague on purpose. It's just like without a concrete niche to work on, I have to be a little bit. But let's say in any given market, you can find the spot where your message sounds new and it's a new way to say what they want to achieve, but it's still something where after proving that you can actually deliver the goods, which you have to do in the second step, then people can trust after you put some more time in that not only do you have their best interests in heart, but you already gave them stuff that they can see working. We actually explain how things go, not like normal sales webinars or letters where you're supposed to stop by the time they're hyped enough to actually want to know how it works. And then like put them on the beginning of a journey, really like having the journey start already, and then just ask them for like, you know, hey, you're already on this incredible journey now. Would you like for us to help you for the rest of the way? And the answer is an overwhelming yes. And this usually leads to solving all your later end problems, like how do I do the offer, upselling and stuff. Because by building intrigue first and then trust second, and then doing it in a way that's not obnoxious and that's not annoying, you get people to actually even recommend you before they buy from you, because they're already like in the first 10, 15 minutes, that's how we structure our webinars at least, they already accepted you as an expert, and they know even if you're not right for them right now, they have you first of mind for somebody else who might strike up a conversation about a topic that they heard in your webinar. And of course, this has to tie in really good ads. You have to be really smart on your funnels, but that's more reduction than blowing things out of proportion. Like people spend $10,000, $20,000 on video ad production these days, which is insane to me and us, because you get the best results from stuff that you do from your heart, and like for 200 bucks with a guy on Fiverr who cuts it and you just talk over slides. Sometimes that works. But let's not get too deep in this, but there's like a lot of strategies where we figured out that the easiest way, once you have the right structure, is actually the best way. And that's why today, I wouldn't even say you need a team, you just need the right process when you get started.
So let's dive into that. And we can use my business or anyone here's business if you want, kind of like raise your hand, and we can definitely use you as an example. But let's dive into that, right? Because there's nothing really new on the internet. One, you know, if we drill it down, there's nothing really new. All the information is out there. People have shown you, behind the scene, and this is how the software work, and this is how to do copy, and this is how to use your camera to get the best pictures and all that stuff. And I always say, like, all the information is out there, but people are still broke, right? They're still sick, they're still depressed, they still don't take action. So it's not the information that's missing, it's that connection, that trust, that intrigue that actually moves them to the next level. So if we're looking at, a business like mine, right, where we want to build trust with people first and connect with people using technology, many internet marketers have already said that before, right? Like, oh, this is the anti-funnel. Oh, this is the conversation first, right? This is the relationship first. How would you start without filling your ads full of bullshit, really, right? Where it's actually real and people go like, ooh, that's new and unique, even though it's just your own spin on things or the way that you see things.
On an ad level or on a webinar level?
Let's start with the ads, right? Because the ads is where we bring people into the webinar, right? So the first step is like, how do we capture the cold traffic and make them go from an ad to your website to opt in to watch, right?
So I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of YouTube video ads. It's applicable to Facebook, but it's way harder to get YouTube right. And once you have something that works on YouTube, you can use it on Facebook, but not the other way around. So on YouTube, there's a very special thing. Within 5 seconds, you can skip. So what you really want is something that grabs your viewer's attention, the specific person you want to convert later, not any viewer, because if they watch longer than 30 seconds, you have to pay for them being there. But if you're very adamant about polarization, then you can keep the right people in while sending the wrong people out. And that should be your goal. And this is a completely different perspective. People who do ads usually want to have like almost everybody come in there. So in your particular business, you actually have something of like you have a perceived problem and a real problem. The perceived problem is what you just mentioned. And not to discredit what you just said, it is true that a lot of these statements in most markets have been said. But the thing is, has my prospect heard this from someone they are following or they are likely to be following already? Has someone else claimed that in their mind? If the answer is no, don't be afraid to at least try it, because you will add your own perspective, story, and authenticity to it, and it will make the message you. So if I say, like, listen, I mean, aren't you tired and annoyed by people trying to jam something down your throat within the first 30 seconds of making contact with you, even though they have no idea who you are? Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I have a short video for you where I show you how even in 2020, and even where we have attention spans of 3.5 milliseconds, and then we go back to Instagram, can engage people in a way that is honest, that is caring, that shows that you really give a damn. And if you don't care about this because you just want to make money, here's the door. But if you do care and your message is worth it, I have a special presentation for you. We can just click on the link right now below this video or in the top right corner, depending on which device you are. And I will explain you exactly how we went to a 3-step methodology, or which 5 points are important in order to get you there and get you in, and then you insert the big promise, which you also had in the beginning, usually. Now, what I did is impromptu copywriting, but I gave you an example of when you see this and when you see someone legitimately, like honestly talking into a camera, or if you see slides with funny pictures, we can get into that a little bit later. You just have distracting the right audience with something they genuinely can care about, and all your job is in the first 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds to stick out of the noise for the people you actually want to attract in the end, not for everybody. So like people started out with video ads and made like generic pattern interrupts, like having a ball thrown in their face, a pie, something explodes, big numbers on the screen. It's totally ridiculous because everybody uses that. I mean, not the pie, but everything else I just said. And also, it doesn't apply to your particular niche. So you want something where in your market, your prospect will have, like, you take some piece of what is already in their head, and then you give them a weird example of how this relates to your day or to something they're doing wrong or something they're not seeing or something where everybody else is telling them the opposite. Then you have their attention, and then you go with a promise, 1 sentence about you, and the actual call to action. Get to the point in 40 seconds or less. That's the most important step, because after 30 seconds, people have decided that they already like you enough. So give them the call to action before the first minute, and then you can later on evaluate more about who you are, who you're doing this for, what you've been doing, and like what you're great at actually.
So I gotta say, like, this is why I love Thorsten so much. The guy is on it, right? In like 2 seconds, he gives you the entire copy. If you guys want to come here and have this conversation with Thorsten, this is the link. thatgeek.com/live. Right below the video, click on the button, join us because we're going to open it up. And now, if you notice, the one very important thing that Thorsten said that I love, because most people who sell you leads don't focus on that. Most people who send you leads go like, I will give you 500 leads in a week. Do you care about that, or do you care about the 5 leads that actually take action, show up, and convert into clients? So do you care about how many leads do you get, or the quality of the leads and the people that you actually want to work with? Because some clients are a nightmare, aren't they? So if you know exactly who you're talking to, what conversations are running in their head, then you can create these YouTube videos where they're talking from the heart, just like Thorsten said, not big production, a phone, right? Where you're talking to someone that you actually want to work with. And you also have a system of if people don't want to be on camera, right? Like you've actually made YouTube ads work without people being on camera. So let's talk about that.
Okay, so we had this weird idea, right? I mean, webinar presentation actually works better unless you're Tony Robbins and everybody knows your face and you've been on stage for the past 20 years, basically born there and then some. And unless people are that good in front of the camera and have the like their directing powers to make it work, the only thing that keeps people engaged is movement. And like when we do slides, and back in the old days when you did VSLs, like with the ugly video sales settings where you just had text on a white background changing all the time, it wasn't so much the visual quality of the production, it was the hypnotizing factor of the fact that something always changed and something stayed the same. So in a way, this is, I wouldn't say tricking the mind, it's just using something, some way that the brain works, how our neurology works. And then with slides, we actually don't do white backgrounds or anything. You can, and they still work in a lot of niches, which is amazing to me because even in the States, I thought this is done, right? You guys have seen it all. There's no chance it's gonna work. We do our first test, generic B2B ad, get the same lead prices that we're getting in Germany, sometimes even lower. And this is really as generic B2B as it gets, like how to make money in this, how to get this many clients in this many days, like something you've seen a million times. But we still made it work because the copy was good and the voice was caring, and we had a little bit of a twist in the beginning. What we do actually is we try to do PowerPoint presentations or Prezi presentations. I'm not making any advertisement, but those are the two systems we've used. Of course, you can do it with Keynote or any kind of free software. And we have clients and friends who do it with just free Google Apple software as well. And what you do is you make sure that something moves every 3 to 5 seconds. In the beginning, maybe even every 1.5 seconds. That's the important part. It sounds ridiculous, but that gets our brain used to the fact that I will always expect something new to happen very quickly, and that builds physical engagement. It's unavoidable that people are engaged. That's the technical side. The content side is, of course, because you're not in front of the camera, you don't have to try so hard to keep all the attention with your movements, with your body language, with the way that you're talking with your hands. Because if you don't do that, and then if you're not a top-notch comedian or entertainer, people get bored. And that's just the way things are these days. Look at the average Facebook or Instagram video. It's like, or even TikTok, it's even worse. Like there's a million jump cuts a second, basically, and you're trying to compete with that. So what we do is we use fluid movements in the slides if we use more advanced ones, or we just have very few words that are just shown every time we talk something. Sometimes we even have moving video, like stock video, where there's just a text bar where the content changes. And this is a little more advanced, but then again, these clips cost $5. And if you know somebody who likes video editing, or if you're willing to invest in the $50 or $20 it costs per hour to get somebody on Fiverr who does that for you. You just pick what should be in the scene. They go look for it themselves, put it together, and you just write the text for underneath it. So the basic principle is write it as you would say it on a camera, and then don't say it yourself. Even you can even get a voice artist for that. But have it under the screen and make sure that the pictures work with the emotion that whatever you're saying wants to transport. So if you're at the part of the copy when you're talking about what's bad in their life and which things you can actually fix, show someone crying or miserable on a cartoon or something, of course. Like use these kinds of things. You don't need to use actual pictures of humans who are miserable, but you can. Like one of my best ads was a woman basically doing this for the standard picture of the ad, and that was a picture ad, and this was actually a stock photo from inside Facebook back then, and it still worked. Because we react to emotional expressions, and then just make sure that whatever content you have in the visualization that isn't directly visualizing the content, like if you have graphs or statistics or pictures that you're showing people something that you want to show them, then make sure that the pictures match the emotions. And this is just the basic emotions: happiness, fear, frustration, the breakthrough moments, the eureka moments when people get somewhere. And it sounds like it's too simple. I get that, and it's not as simple as I can make it in the as I'm saying it now. But the less simple version takes maybe 10 minutes to explain, and that's just about the copy. And I gave you most of the structure already. So if you have the structure and if you use this kind of format, you would be amazed what you can generate on a lonely afternoon or with somebody who just likes doing presentations for you. And it worked in every niche we ever tried it in, unless we are running against more than 3 really advanced marketers. And then we usually mix it up with moving videos, or then we make sure that in the statements we say the exact opposite of what they're saying, and finding a very good reason why we do it, and then target their channels and steal their traffic. Oops, I didn't say it.
So, is that the dirty little secret of the webinar industry, or there's another one?
Oh, there's a few.
There's a few. Okay, so wait, before we get there, one of the things that you said that is super important is testing, right? You didn't say, hey, I'm gonna create an ad and that's it. I have 8 figures, in 2 years. Everything that we do online is a test, right? So one of the hardest things is not getting attached to results, right? You create an ad, you put yourself out there, and something doesn't work, and you go like, ah, I'm a failure. This is not working, right? And something that everybody needs to wrap their head around is like, it's all a test. Everything is a test. And if you have some ad budget, then the test can be shorter, right? And then you're just starting to play with things and seeing what works. One of the guests on this show was talking about how the ads, especially in Facebook, has to be about anger and disgust and resentment and all those ugly feelings that make people click and go to your website. And on that opt-in page, it's all heaven and nice and good and the results that you can get them. So is that something that you agree with, or is it more about like, hey, this is really what I can do for you, and if you want to see how, come into my webinar, let me show you how?
I can only talk from my personal experience, of course. And I've realized that in some industries, and those are usually within the big 4, like those are everybody markets, like dating, weight loss, and anything in terms of
relationship, right? Money.
Yeah, and everything in terms of business to business, but that's geared to business newbies, like every business opportunity thing, basically. There, because you're fighting against so many other marketers who've been doing this for so long, you have to start with ridiculously strong emotions, and you have to do a cascade that goes from negative to positive. Actually, what we do is we go sort of through a roller coaster, because what's really important is getting people from the feeling and from the perception of this sounds good, but it seems like I can't do it, to okay, now I can see myself doing it. And this has to happen multiple times in the webinar and a little bit in the ad by giving them a new way or hinting at a new way or formulating the promise in a new way that's like different than the way they heard it before. So you get them engaged enough so they even care. I wouldn't say that this is the only structure. Then again, it really, like in my experience, and I've been doing this for more than 25,000 hours as far as I counted so far, I've never seen a one-size-fits-all solution that doesn't break when you go in a certain market, when you go in a certain demographic, or when you hop a continent. For example, when I run traffic in America, I can always work with patriotism, local pop culture. I can work with, if I want to, I can be very polarizing in politics and immediately get my ass handed to me very quickly if I do it wrong, of course. But like there's certain topics that play very well in the States. Whereas if I run an ad in France, I can do patriotism. If I run an ad in Germany, that will sink my ship faster than I can do it. If I talk about guns anywhere in Europe, I'm completely off guard. And I come from the perspective of having to run in global markets all the time. So you have to be very flexible in your tool set. And if you get, for example, if you're trying to help people who are already in a very big amount of pain, then getting them very, very angry is your last resort. That's what you do when you can't get them with the fact that you can solve the pain, when you can't get them with the fact that you have a faster and better way, when you can't get them with the fact that your solution actually helped prominent people or a lot of people, even if you didn't invent it. Then you have to get them with everybody else was lying to you and we are now the ones who are telling you the truth. And this is like a how far ahead is the market in your particular niche with your particular solution type. There's actually something that this little book that you can see here, and I'm really too stupid to point at it with the camera, talks about. It's one of my favorite books about copy. It's called Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. He's been dead many years now, but he breaks down better than probably everybody on the planet ever, except for the people who copied him later or expanded on his work, that there are market awareness stages. And your statement, from what I heard from the person that was on your show, is from a very, very late stage market where a lot of people heard about the solution, heard about different ways to frame the problem, have basically tried everything. And you're just at the point where you have to come up with something new. Otherwise, people are just completely gone. And then you play with these very strong emotions because they're the only bullet you have left in the chamber.
Got it. And so we talked about like how to intrigue people, how to run your ads, whether you're on camera or whether you're off camera, what's the format would be, how to, Thorsten even gave you an example of what the copy of the ad would be. Go watch the replay if you need that. So let's dive into webinars, right? Like, so now they watch the ad, they're intrigued, they're taking action. Only the right people that we want because we're not catering to everybody. So they're coming in. There's an opt-in page, right, to come into the webinar, and then there's the format of the webinar. So let's talk about that, and then we'll open it up to some guys here for some interactions. So ad, right, they're on our page. Does the page have to be anything special, or is just kind of like, hey, we're doing, no, okay, great, not special. So page, they opt in, and now let's talk about the webinar.
A few words about the opt-in page, because it doesn't have to be special, but it's more important to leave the things out. Like, for example, on my most successful webinar opt-in page, 3 things you never do in marketing work perfectly. That is, 1, I don't have a single testimonial on there because I don't want people to read anything. 2, I don't even have the content of the webinar actually on the above the fold section because they already heard that in the ad. And if they see the headline and the headline is good enough, it's a lengthy headline and a little bit of a sub ad, they click. And 2, I give them very little choice. Like there's a single call to action. 3, there's a single call to action. So you want to reduce it to really like making it about the headline and then giving them already the button, because on mobile, that's all they're going to see anyway. Then you're going to go into the 3 to 5 points that are the main points that support your big thesis. And then you send them straight to the webinar. There's a little bit of magic you can do on the thank you page, but it's also very, very reduced. Important part there is that you focus on getting them to desktop. I don't know why so many people think that watching a webinar on mobile has any chance of converting, but people just don't spend 2 hours looking at a mobile screen without hurting themselves. And that's
Netflix, right? If it's Netflix, then yeah.
Yeah, but then you don't hold your phone 2 hours, you put it somewhere and then you walk around the room. Is that the kind of people you want in your webinar, that you actually want to explain something complicated to and then later on get them to buy into what you wanted to generate buy-in for? No?
Yep.
And then we're in the webinar. So now, the last time I tried to give people an overview, and that was in German, of the whole webinar structure, it took me about 10 minutes of very, very fast-paced monologue. Why don't we start maybe with the intro, and then we can see if we can dive into the areas from there. Is that okay?
Yeah. So how about we start with the intro, just like just like very short layout, and then we'll open it up so then people can ask specific questions about their own stuff.
Perfect. We can do that. So the most important thing about the intro is people just see it as, hi, I'm this one. Hey, let's do a mic check. Is everybody here? Okay, we're going to be talking about this, and then a little bit about you and a little bit of how you got there. And if you're really good in sales webinars, and this is already like the industry standard, you saw a course by Russell Brunson somewhere, and then you're copying his format, which is basically saying, hey, I figured this out the hard way. I'm going to give you the short way, and now we're going to talk about this. And maybe they promise you an iPhone if you stay to the end. And I find that like it works, but it's like literally one of the most difficult ways to pull it. I wanted to say other words, but good manners forbid. What is way easier is to format the content in a way that there's a letter of engagement. So from the first second on, they build more interest. If this would be something where people could join afterwards, you would feel like people would who would watch more would be more and more engaged and would keep dragging people to actually appear in the webinar. Of course, it doesn't work when you use normal webinar software, not Zoom. But basically what you do is in the very beginning, you just, again, reductionism, your one big promise that you know people are going to be interested enough to stay the first 1 minute on, and you dive right in. You can give yourself about a minute of content that you're willing to repeat very soon, because that's about the time it takes for any technical solution I tried so far to make sure that even the people who are there at the first second still land there in terms of connection quality, loading time and stuff. So in this period, you can do a little bit of, hey, we're going to start soon. This is going to be awesome, blah, blah, blah. But then you want to hit the ground running. And by that, I mean, not talk faster and faster, even though I've been seen as doing that and prone to do that in the past. But what actually works best is you structure it in a way like you would try to actually convince somebody that is a total stranger, which in most cases is actually who you have in front of you, that A, you really do know your stuff, and B, you're willing to put in the time to get them results, and C, you already did it, and that's what the webinar is for. And those three things combined can work magic. The format is as follows. In the beginning, big promise, then you go into a little bit about what they're actually there for. You want to define the promise down into the deliverables that you already announced on the landing page. So far, so basic. You just want to tell them that they're in the right place. And then when you start telling about yourself, your own story, you have milestones to reach, because what you really want to do is you want to build your own authority. You want to become somebody they can relate to, but also somebody they can see as giving a lecture about this topic in a way that people wouldn't fall asleep. And you do that by actually telling your own story and the reason that they're there in a way that is engaging, by using your own previous results if you have them, or borrowing proof from other people who use similar methods if you are starting out completely new. And we can talk about that later if that's relevant for anybody. We had to figure this out for some of our clients, and it works like gangbusters, but it's really rare that you see it in the running, especially in the American market these days. So you introduce yourself, you introduce your story, but you focus on what got me to be the person that you want to listen to for the next 90 minutes. Like, why am I standing here? Why the hell should you care who I am and what I have to tell you? And you have to be really, really succinct about this in the beginning. So if I were to introduce Yifat, I would say, listen, you want to, like, if I were actually introducing you when you're coming on stage, I would use the way that I would introduce you as you, and then I would just tone it down a little so I can talk about this myself. So really, like, talk about your accomplishments, but in relation to the event that is right now. Then talk about the accomplishments you generated for other people. That's also super important. And then talk about the benefits that this gave you in your life. Like, what amazing feats were you able to pull off afterwards? Which crazy people did you meet? Did this allow you to travel, or did you do something for people that were important to you? Like, whatever, like, your passion connects this to, and everything that makes you a little bit larger than life. As you probably have realized, I haven't said a single word about the contents of the actual webinar. I just gave promises and introduced myself and introduced the results. And this is super important. You have to actually wet the whistle. You have to actually get them intrigued enough in the beginning. And then you have to, that's with the promises, then you have to get them intrigued in you as the speaker, even if they haven't heard about you before, in a way that makes them realize, okay, this guy knows his shit, this gal knows what she's talking about. And this is relevant to the result I want to get for them. That's why we have the differentiation of the results before we go into this part. And then lastly, what we do is we give a little bit of a journey, like a map, so to speak, like, okay, this is what you're going to be able to expect in this webinar. We even ask them, hey, does this sound interesting to you, to get the first yes in their head, which is important to build momentum. Like, does this sound like something you want to spend the next 90 minutes on? Do you want to know how we accomplished all this for ourselves and our clients? Yes, great, because this is exactly what we're going to do here. And one last really important thing that we want to always do is we're going to make sure that we have an explicit commitment from them. So in the first 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to ask them to pay attention to something specific or to self-identify whenever something happens, like pay attention to how this applies to what you're doing in your life right now. Look for ways that you would be able to tell this to a coworker or somebody in your line of work or somebody that you want to work with, and write those down. And if you're not clear about it, take notes and ask them to me via email later. It's funny because if you give them the exact reason why they should write you, they will write you afterwards. Otherwise, you'll almost never hear from them unless they're very spammy. And well, then you get that permission basically and their commitment to actually be there. And then the last part of the intro is basically just building momentum again by going through the content that you're going to deliver. Like, what's the point of your first chapter or your first module, second module, third module, whatever in your webinar. And like, what's not just what is the topic, but what is the deliverable behind the topic? What's the superpower you're going to give them with it? What's the result of that? How will their lives change? Just put that in very short sentences, go through them, and then afterwards you will have built momentum to the point where you say, okay, this guy or this gal, I have no idea why I never heard about them, but it must be my fault, and I'm super glad I met them today. This is the feeling you want to leave them. You want people to leave the intro with, and once you use that structure, it's usually not very hit or miss because you can't go wrong. People usually have a hard time not seeing that as bragging too much about themselves, but if you are just focusing on describing the results that are important to the people, that would be also like relevant buyers later on. You basically can only get too much in volume by repeating a point or by making a point twice. Otherwise, you will be good. And once you've like combined the right amount of self-aggrandization and talking about the results that you got from other people, you should, of course, if you have them, talk more about the results you got for other people. You're good to go.
So this is great. We have a comment from Grace on the side that's saying these are really useful tips, even though and especially because they are simple. Thank you for sharing your success experiences. So if you guys want to see this in action, this is really on Thorsten's website. Just go to amthatgeek.com/live. To the right of the video, you'll see his beautiful picture. Click on that. It'll take you to his website and you can see how he formatted his own webinar, and you can take notes from there. So you can see good webinars in action, because we're having comments from people like, what are great webinars out there that we can actually see? And I am, because I'm in internet marketing, I'm pretty allergic to webinars because I know they're just a sales pitch, right? But the way that you're designing yours is more about giving value than the end of the sales pitch. So let's talk about, guys, we're going to open it up. Miranda, you're next. But before we do that, a lot of people are worried about giving way too much, right? Like, if I give them value and if I do all these amazing things, then why would they buy from me? My conversion is going to go. So all I have to do on a webinar is tease, right? And then say, oh, now if you want the cake, here's the sales page for that. So you're going at it in a completely different way. So let's talk about that for a second, and then Miranda, you're next.
Gladly. So this is something I figured out in 2012 and by accident. So I'm not claiming this is some magic thing that I just invented. I don't know if somebody else is talking about this right now. We've just been talking about this for a very long time. And you can actually make way more impact in the lives of your potential prospect if you're going the extra mile in a specific direction. More content is not the answer. If you get more goosebumps, that's the answer, is something one of my clients used to put it. I like that idea, but let's put it into practice. What does that actually mean? You have to give people the experience of seeing the world like seeing the world that they live in change in front of their very eyes, and in a very small shard of it, like almost what you would see in the rearview mirror of a car. That's like compared to what you see in your entire view space. This is as much, or this is as much, maybe just a post stamp, like, but this is the amount you have to dramatically change. And once you achieve that, people will actually be really, really into you, because this is an emotional experience that we usually connect with the big plot twist in movies. But it's super easy to do in webinars, because all you have to do is get them to buy into a premise by explaining what the normal status quo in your market is and how people usually solve this problem. Then showing how does this tremendously stupid on the one hand, and how at the same time it's not their fault if they've been doing it this way, because clearly nobody else told them how to do it differently, and then showing them a better way. And the important part is actually showing them to the point where they believe that they can do it themselves. Like back in 2012, we did this inside of VSL, and we were the first and only weight loss VSL for at least 3 or 4 years in Europe that actually had any content. Like we actually explained our entire weight loss methodology after doing some things that made people sit through this thing, because of course, if it would be just an informational video, people wouldn't pay attention. But because of the formula we use, it's super interesting, because we show first, hey, why is this super valuable to you? What problems do you have right now because you haven't heard this? And what problems are you not going to have anymore? And what benefits will you have perceived after you've heard this? And how will they feel in your lives? We actually go through lengths to make that clear before we ever dive into actual content. So once people realize, okay, this is important, even if I've done 15 diets, or even if I've tried finding a mate with online dating, or even if I tried building a business online, or even whatever niche you're going to be in, we're going to find an example. This is something new, something different, and this is something genuine. I should pay attention. And also, I already realized before I even get into the content, okay, this is actually gonna, like, this has already changed the way I'm thinking, like subconsciously, right? We look at something and then we go, wait, I never saw it like that. That's interesting. And this buys the kind of buy-in that makes people gradually more and more interested in what you have to say, as opposed to most very content-heavy webinars, where people, like, after 15, 20 minutes already go, okay, you gave me so many tips, it's beautiful, but my head is steaming. I want to get out of here. Like, I want to put myself in an ice bath to calm down. And this is the thing that people do with over-teaching, instead of having one big thing, where it's like, it's almost like the lever you want to pull, when you know, okay, if people believe this at the end of the webinar, then it's likely they're going to buy. So with you, for example, it would be, if people believe that they can build an interaction in an ethical, scalable way and also in a way that is interesting to them and their audience, that will attract their perfect customers, with your methodology, it's easy to not just get in front of the right clients, but also get sales from just the people you want to work with. This is like the big lever, right? If this is something that people believe in the end, they will buy. So how do you get there? Well, what most people do who overteach is they give you 15 pieces of the puzzle, or 10 different pieces of the puzzle that have nothing to do with each other. And that's, of course, a recipe for disaster, because you need to reduce and then either put it into a sequence where you teach 4 things that people have to do after each other, or 3 or 5, doesn't matter. It shouldn't be much more. It shouldn't be more, but it shouldn't be much less. And then in the end, they arrive at the point where they say, okay, yeah, this all made sense. Everything that I thought was hard about this is now easy. Everything that I thought would take me ages about this, I now understand how to do it properly. And you gave them, and that's where we do it very differently, we still give them some part of the content. Like, we give them the actual tips, but only after we made sure they realized the importance of it. And only after we made sure that it's all part of smaller parts, like secrets or steps, or however you want to call it, that all lead to people moving further to understanding or believing the big lever. So it's almost like every single point of your webinar pushes the lever one step forward, and in the end, it's down and people have to buy. The other perspective is overselling, and I want to spend a few seconds on why this doesn't work anymore. A, because it's done too many times. Like, who of you likes to sit in front of an infomercial at night and goes, oh yeah, this is what I need right now? I mean, as marketers, we're obviously not all market, but there's so few people left. This is why these margins are shrinking, the hours getting later, people aren't investing so much in this anymore. Teleshopping is still a huge industry, but that's because there's certain products that are that run like for impulse buyers. But for everything else and everything you want to actually take time to explain it, it's when you do this overselling stuff, it's basically hype, 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 let down. And then you have to cover up the letdown with objection handling and pushy salesmanship up until the point where people are so frustrated that they don't really know what it's about and they only know that they want the result, that they have to buy, and then it's either instant refund or I forgot about it, I never downloaded it, I don't have it on my hard drive. And this is insane for so many reasons, because when people actually are invested in your stuff after they buy, your upselling works way better. People will consume your material and then get more motivated to hear from you, work with you in a better way. I don't even have a funnel for my high ticket in Europe anymore, because my lower ticket or mid ticket programs, just by building so much value on the webinar, I can literally put a video afterwards to say, hey, and if you want to work with me directly, it's going to be a little more costly, but you already saw in the webinar the results that people are getting from working directly with me, because most of the testimonials you just saw, you can say that now, they already bought. Most of the testimonials you saw, of course, are for people who work with me personally, if you offer that, for example. So if you want to do this too, there are a few spaces left, sign up here. This is literally my entire pitch for 30,000 euros, so like almost $40,000 coaching program. And it's enough. I'm sold out. I would have to open up a new group. And it's because the value that we give is specific to what they want, structured in a way that they want it, and that we take responsibility for them being interested till the end. And we don't oversell the crap out of them, even though we, of course, want to sell them, because it's the other thing. People are sometimes afraid to sell or feel like they're doing a disservice. But like, no webinar is ever long enough to actually solve the entire problem. Like, depending on what it is sometimes, but you have to realize that there's a reason you have a course. There's a reason you have a product. There's a reason you have a service. And that is, people with a specific solution really need your help. And if you don't enable them to buy, and if you don't do your damnedest to make them buy in the end, you're doing them a disservice. This is what I did with my first program. I was so focused on moving the free line and doing really great work with that, which is a great concept. I just applied it the wrong way, that I forgot to take their money, at least from the people who wanted to give it to me, early enough and in the right way, so I could bring it in front of more people. So main component, give value, use the structured way, teach a few of the steps, but after you make clear what kind of changes applying what you're about to teach, this will make in their lives. And then afterwards, wrap it up with what we call a yes street, where you just go future pacing and go, can you see how this improves your life if you apply it? And can you see how much more valuable that's going to be than everything you did before? And maybe one more, and then like you go into the next thing. This is basically how we do the internal structure of one point in the content. And then, as I said earlier, make sure they either follow each other chronologically. Like, for example, in one of our webinars, we explain how to do webinars. So it's step 1 is the intro, step 2 is the content, step 3 is the offer, and step 4 is the last one, how to get the sales and stuff. And then it's fine. Or you have to do it in a way where it's like, okay, this is what everybody comes here for, and what they see is the big problem. And then by the time you actually have solved that, you open up the problem letter, the problem box again, and show them, yeah, but it's usually hard to achieve, or people think it takes a long time, or you need a tremendous experience, and then you make that easier again. And then once they're at the point where they believe, okay, this is possible and this is easy or fast or whatever, then you fill up the last part with actually getting them to realize, okay, wait a minute, I can do this too, because people like me were successful with it by making the tools basically risk reversal, done for you, giving them some kind of template or anything. I'm trying to put as much in here because I know people can watch the replay later. So sorry if this was a little too fast for most people, but we literally take about 45 minutes for this segment on the webinar that actually sells my one of my programs.
Yeah, so again, if you guys want this, and John Z is watching us on YouTube, if you want the link, this is the link. thatgeek.com/live. You see it as well in YouTube, in the link. Just click here, and right to the right of this video, you'll see a link to see Thorsten's webinar and all his information, his website, and everything else. So let's start with Miranda. And because we have a lot of people here, let's keep it to one question, guys, and see how we can get you some value. So, Miranda, hi.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited. Really briefly, I am the official lipstick reader. I offer kiss whispers in order to decode a kiss. Does that mean anything to anyone? Absolutely not. My industry is so saturated, tarot, oracle, palm reading. But what I do is I decode the science of a kiss. So I have to also teach those that don't really know my modality, but I'm pretty well versed in what I do. How do I declutter and bring my diamond into the forefront of what I do quickly and impactful? Because I always say what I do, then I have to share. It is like oracle, tarot, palm reading, etc., etc. What do you suggest, Thorsten?
Are you already running ads successfully?
No, no. I've always been on ground. With COVID, I am now starting my online.
Ah, okay. So this is actually, and of course, I might be talking out of my proverbial behind here because I haven't tried it yet. But from my experience, this would actually be easier if you do online, because online people react to things like, did you know that you can read more out of the, and I would go, if it's applicable, again, correct me if I'm wrong, out of the kiss of a man than out of knowing his entire bank history, his CV, and everything he ever did for a living, and or whatever else people would like to stalk about a person, like SAT scores, go nuts, like and compare this, because now you give people something. Women are always intrigued, like, this guy is into me, I have no idea how to read them. And now you have a specific target market, right? And because you say kiss, immediately dating comes up. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but this would work. If it's not about this, then you just focus on the fact that you can actually read something out of the kiss. So this is the hook part. This is how you get them intrigued. Then you just talk one sentence about yourself. I'm just focusing on that here. Hi, I'm Miranda, and I've been, for how many years, however you've been doing it, I've been like grateful enough, or I've been honored to practice the ancient art of kiss reading. I don't know how you want to describe it. I don't know your niche, so I have to make this up as I go. I'm sorry. And then, but I find it really interesting. This is exactly the kind of problem I love to. And then you have like ancient art of kiss reading. And I know people look at me all the time like I'm nuts, until they see how freaking right I am and how I could have predicted. And then the things you can usually pull off with that. People that would cheat on you in the future, if this is still the dating context, right? Or that would turn out to be abusive if you want to go the pain way. More proverbially, like, who would make good husbands and fathers, or because I think it's more of a female demographic that you would be targeting in the beginning, at least.
No,
Um,
actually, men, when I'm doing events, men push the women aside. And what I've had to do to create is, because of COVID, I cannot see people in person. So I've developed to be able to blow a kiss, or for me to see the lips. And now I can do this radio and here. I just didn't know, how do I declutter? And you exactly what I need to do and how to land it. So thank you.
You're welcome. And then from there, you just get them into the webinar explaining this, or into video explaining this further, giving them more background in it, and just make them realize how crazy they are not to have this in their lives. And then after you already hooked them, then you can go, by the way, this is so much more effective than put the other people's methodologies aside, like acknowledge that they exist, say they can be valuable, but you already showed that this is more valuable and more specific, because you know what the guys say when they push the women away, like why they use it. You have an extreme advantage because you know their language, you know what they're interested in, because you're already interacting with them offline. And how long have you been doing this, if I may ask?
I've been a lipstick reader for 11 years. There's only 7 lipstick readers in the universe, but I'm the only one that can bring the woo and life coaching. So it's a triage of 3 things that no one has so far.
7 in the world, you already are done with like making yourself unique because you're going to be the only one running ads to them, especially right now. And you're definitely going to be the only one who's so charming while doing it because you've been doing this in person. You know how to get people. And people are like, I mean, mouth. Like, this is where we get like, oh, do I have something in my mouth? Herpes, like beard correct for the guys. So there's so much minimal, but still valid taboo that you're going to be doing really fine if you just stay on the things you're already doing. And for you, it's really important not to niche down yourself so much, because offline you might think you're competing, but if you're going online, if you're doing digital marketing, I don't know, but I would guess from those 7, probably not a lot of them advertise, and probably not a lot of them advertise well. So you would be the only one on the planet, and then you literally the first. And if you're the first, you're obviously the best, because who else would dare get in front of new people with this new messaging? And everyone who hooked right now is much more likely to be convinced. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise for you, because I can see how like having this kiss blowing thing that you can do visually and that can be read can be extremely valuable to people, and is way more scalable than only the people who come to you in person.
Yes. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Great question.
Beautiful, beautiful. This is why I love the guy. So, Amy, how are you, darling?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much. Hi,
Yeah.
Thorsten. Um, I am going to work with pastors' wives because pastors' wives are really the most forgotten community within our church world. And there's a lot of loneliness happening. And you were saying that, I believe you were saying that within that first 5 to 10 minutes, when you're introducing yourself, when you're telling them what you want them to do, you need to get them to write something down. Is that correct? To email you?
No, you need to commit to something, and it can be, for example, if they like if they can't see a way, or if they are confused about something, then write even otherwise write down like what is the essential thing the essential way that they can see benefits from this. This is the easiest way. Like really think about how this applies to your world, and like I want you to have like 2 or 3 things that you can do right now, because I know I'm going to teach you 15, and if you don't get 2 or 3, I will feel like I did my job wrong. And it might be that 10 years or a year from now, if we meet in person, you might be in the same bad place that you are right now, or not so good place that you are right now. That would be a shame for me. So please take that time. Do we have a deal? Yes. I learned this concept in this variation, like what I just gave you from Jason Platnian. He's literally like the guy where I say, okay, worship you. He's like the guy I still learn from, because he's been doing it even longer, focused on webinars than I do. But it's you have to apply it differently in certain markets. That's where we came in and did something a little extra. What I just gave you is something specifically that would also work in your market. Do you do advertising to those people? Because I immediately have messaging popping in my head like it's coming from somewhere else.
I am working with Yifat, and I am trying to learn right now is what I'm doing. So I've got my opt-in page, and I'm trying to get everything together to do my first webinar, seminar with these ladies. And so I'm kind of starting from scratch again, because Yifat said my message wasn't strong enough for what I wanted to do. But I've been where they are. I've been in full-blown depression and come out of it. And I was diagnosed bipolar, actually, but I've been 17 years med-free. So I know where they are. My thought was, can I have them write down 3 words to describe themselves that they don't want anybody else to know, that they have to send to me, and then later have them write down 1 word or 1 phrase that they could say good about themselves, just to make them think.
That's very good, but you're now here's something, like you can do the job for them, and it would make your job easier. Because what I immediately came up with was like, you would never say this to a soul, but secretly inside you know that your community would break apart if you wouldn't support your husband the way you do, and all the whatever verbiage you want to have, all the people in your community the way you do. Hello, my name is Amy. And now you have addressed exactly that. Those are the words they will never utter aloud. And you will find many examples of these things. Because if you give those words, it's way more powerful because they realize you can describe the situation, the problem, and their surroundings better than they can describe it themselves. And at that point, they feel heard for the first time. You will have people starting to cry at this point if you hit like a hammer on the head on the real point. And this is something when you see it live, when people go, you don't, like, sometimes I have to switch off like the screen to the point where I only see the camera if I do lives, because I know that I'm hitting a few, like striking a few chords with people. But you do that because after that they can relax, and if you finally heard and feel at home. And what you're doing is very, very good for after the webinar. This is really great for lives. For live, it's perfect if you have them live. Everything I teach, I try to make applicable for something you want to automate in the process, because as Yifat said in the beginning, it's really important that your messaging at some point gets in front of all the people who need it, because it already improves their lives if they get it, even if they can't buy it. So you really need to think about scale a little bit if you doing this because you know you have like a calling to do it, and if you know that it's helping people. That's at least my way of looking at it. And that's why for you, I would, like, if I do it automated, I would put these in there, but I wouldn't focus so much on then getting them to message you and then maybe closing them because of what they said. But I would make it more of an experience where they realize that you already talk their language, so they feel like they finally can talk about their deepest, darkest moments. I mean, you shared something tremendously painful for most people to even acknowledge, let alone say it with such grace and such pizzazz. I don't know another word for it. And I'm really impressed by that, because I work with a lot of people who can't even do that, or are used to anyway. And kudos for that. But like, the most important thing for you is really get to the point where you can talk to them at scale. They feel immediately heard. They know. And if you don't know the words, but I'm like 100% sure you know that they use and that they think, like, use them. And actually preface it, I know you would never say this in person. And then, like, basically allow them to think it. Because if you're talking pastors wise, we're talking a lot of repressed feelings and repressed thoughts that go into sometimes even deeper traumata. And not because everyone is like that, but you're going for a very specific segment there. I'm feeling when you're already relating your own story, who already suffers from the amount of work that they have to put in, the recognition that they're not getting, and they don't even want to do it for the recognition, but they're completely ignored sometimes. And like, just making sure that they realize that they're in a safe world. If you do that in the first 5 to 10 minutes, and then relate your own story in order to make them feel like whatever, like, they are going to share, you've heard it all, you've been there. Share stories, even anonymized, just with a name, not a picture, of people that you work with, where the way you describe the story makes it clear that it really happened, because you're not general, you're very specific. Then people will be like, oh my God, this is finally a place where I can let go, where I can be who I really am, at least for 10 minutes, and take it from there. I'm sure you're going to do great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I keep telling Amy that she is in the business of saving lives, because there's there's so much depression and loneliness, right? It's like the silent killer. So the more she can.
Sorry, didn't want to interrupt you, but you're in the business of saving lives of people who then multiply and save many lives. And this is like the most important work we can do, because this is why I do this today. Like, I help people who are multipliers themselves get in front of as many people as possible. It's not about the money anymore. Most of my clients already are in the 6 figures a month and want to get to 7 maybe, but it's also about reaching more people in the process, transforming more people. And so do you, and you even transform the people's lives of the people that they work with who come to you. So keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Yifat.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah, I keep saying like why I love working with you and talking to you and engaging with you and having you in my life is because we're really resonating on the same level. It's not just for the money, it's for the impact and the life changing and the legacy that you leave behind you and how it ripples around. So I love it. Julie, how are you?
Hi, good. Okay, so what I am doing is I'm trying to work with homeschool moms who are feeling really frustrated and unsuccessful. And this homeschooling was like a subculture and very niche until 2020. And now suddenly it's like super saturated. And my difficulty a little bit is that so many brands and companies and educational businesses are offering all like stuff for free, tons of stuff. Everything is like flooding the market with, you know, free lessons, free this, free that. So it's hard to break in and then be like, I'm going to sell something. But, you know, but most of all, I want to create like a community that helps moms grow. How can I, and there's also some in our niche, there's some big power players that everybody knows. And I am like super small fish. But how do I differentiate myself, or, you know?
Can we do this a little bit as a dialogue, because I need to ask you a few things.
Yes.
Okay. How many people have you already worked with directly or have consumed your content, at least to the point that you can track?
So on the individual level, I've only worked with friends who also homeschool. And I want to say like super specifically, maybe 5 that I've really like actually had in my house and like shown them how I homeschooled. But then I do have a blog that has a lot of homeschool content, and it reaches about 18 to 25,000 people a month, or impressions, but I don't know for sure if that's all the homeschool content. I could dig down into that a little bit more and find out.
Okay. You're not a very small fish if your stuff is read by more than 10,000 people a month, even if it's a little bit less or a little bit more. Because the first thing we have to change is your perspective. Yes, they are big, and there's people who spend TV money and stuff. When we did Schlankr.de, that was our weight loss platform, nobody heard of us before. Like nobody, absolutely. Our ads that ran 4 billion impressions, so our entire 10 million people market, they saw them 400 times over 2 years. They weren't branded, so even the people who saw the ads didn't know us. Only the people who clicked. Why do I tell you this? Because once you find either by niching down or by going all in on your story, and maybe something that makes you unique, or in the way you homeschool, in the results that it gives in terms of the feelings that people have, or in a specific way that it solves problems or addresses concerns better than most, by making it personal on top of that, you will stand out to the point where you will have way less competition. To finish that story, Weight Watchers was spending about 14, like in the beginning, maybe 10 to 15, and in the end, more than 40 million a year in Germany in advertising and TV and billboard and everything, of course, online too. And we got within about 81%, we worked with an agency that also worked with them, and they were, let's say, indiscreet enough to share their data, within 81% of the clicks that they were getting. How did we do this? Because we focused on one thing that made us unique, and then we went on one channel. So for example, you could double down on YouTube advertisement, because I can already see that you're going to be good in front of a camera. You're very good at talking. You will have a very passionate way of relating to people once you start telling your stories, and you also have a good face for the camera. So this is all things where I know, okay, if you do that, and if you are willing to switch a little bit away from the blog, you will be very good at this. And then you have to double down on this one. This is the vague stuff. Now for the specifics, I would need to know more about why you started homeschooling. Do you have any superpowers that you would prescribe to? Have any other people ascribed superpowers to you? Or is it something that really annoys you about the way homeschooling is usually done, that you know is wrong and you can do better? Is there something like this? Anything that pops there to mind?
Yeah, so one of the things that really annoys me is when parents don't believe that they can teach their children, because we've all been teaching our children since birth. And I'm so passionate about like helping parents see that like they've already been doing it. And so this is just taking that same thing they've already been doing, and it's in a different modality, but it's the same thing they've already been doing. And it makes me so sad when parents think they can't do this. Because they've already been doing it. And then I guess my superpower is like being able to take something and make it like holistic. Like I believe like the whole family should be learning. Like it's not just the one activity for the one kid for the one day. It's like your whole life. You're learning your whole life. And this is kind of what I like to do, is I like to take something and make sure it's like holistically applicable.
Okay. I see people clapping, and now I'm the person without children here, probably one of the only ones. So I get to play devil's advocate and say that's fine, but how do we not make that sound like more work? Because this is the one thing you have to solve, and once you solve that better than everyone else, you win. Right now, especially in Germany, like we never had homeschooling, right? But now the schools are open and tens of thousands of people are getting sick every day because the schools are open, but we're trying to fix everything else except for closing down the schools again because people can't handle it. So what would be the sellable portion? That would be homeschool and be at home with your children, that turns the entire experience all day into something that you love doing, that they love doing, and that will actually turn this into a huge opportunity to make your life and the life of your kids better, get them better grades even when the school starts, again, in case they want to go back to it, or make them better prepared than they ever could be for the market, for the work market, for everything that is to come in their lives later. And I hope you saw what I did there. I took what you told me, the holistic approach, and I just framed it a little bit differently. Because like, if you can improve the experience for the whole day, then this is a massive superpower, because people were beforehand maybe questioning their ability to homeschool. And it's still a good first point to make, first secret to solve, like first myth to bust. First thing I want to tell you is you're already good at this, and here's why. But if you get them before that with, listen, I teach homeschooling in a way that it's not just about homeschooling, but I teach being at home with your kids and schooling them in the process, so they get more eager to learn. They get eager to not be on your nerves. They allow you to actually have some free time and also peace of mind, while they get emotionally and intellectually more and more value out of this, advance quicker and stuff like this. And I'm sure if you're going to look for it, there's going to be studies of certain methodologies in homeschooling that lead also to general life happiness and wellness improvement scores for the parents. There's going to be studies like this that show that those kids that have been homeschooled in a very certain way are not only getting better at academia, which is fine, which is what everybody's going to be talking about, but getting happier, getting better human beings, less likely to be subject to drug abuse, to crimes and anything. If you focus on those and you're the gateway to this, everyone else can kiss your sorry, because like nobody will be competing on this. So you take exactly what you do, but you don't compete on, it's just about homeschooling. It's about holistic whole home living and schooling experience that improves your private life, the life of your kids, your love life with your spouse, your ability to still go to work at the same time, your sanity, everything. And the kids are just the angle. And then you can take a lot more or a lot different kinds of money for it than everyone else is taking, because you're offering anything else. Somebody else is handing out movie tickets. You get them to be part of a theater production where they're part of the star of the show, even though they don't have to learn any lines. So like it's an amazing feeling to actually see this in front of your eyes, experience this, and people will want that. Does it make sense to you?
It does. It just got so much bigger.
And it is. And this is what I love about my job, because I get to show people like you, wait a minute, you solve a way bigger problem and you're already doing it, right? Everything I just said, you already do, right?
In a way, yeah.
I mean, do people get happier out of this? Do people get less stressed about homeschooling? Are they more secure?
You do it right.
If they, of course, but you that's one thing where I take like stop putting the pressure of the whole world on your shoulders, like reduce the pressure a little bit. It's your job to give them the right tools and to motivate them enough to start, but it's their job to invest into going further, either by spending more money on you and then you can drag them along. Hey, we all want to also make a living here, or by just spending more time on actually applying what you teach.
Okay, thank you.
I love this. Like, this is such a fantastic way to, even when you start, Julie, even if you didn't do ads right away, but you took that message to all the people who are asking you to speak in front of their audiences and all the groups that you're a part of and all that stuff, right? And build that momentum and then take that and apply the same exact thing that works into the ads. And now you're scaling, right? It's awesome.
Definitely. Because I mean, everybody else is talking about homeschooling. You talk about not the one specific outcome that everybody else wants to improve, but you talk about how your life's going to get better, how what this actually should be about, building a better relationship with your kid, building a better relationship with yourself, all the things you cover. I'm sure when you say holistically, that's things that you actually have in there. And if that even makes them smarter in the end, I mean, I'm not going to complain.
We'll have better people around us as they grow to become better human beings. So it's all good. Zabrina, how are you, lady?
Doing great. Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here today and for taking this time with us. I really appreciate it. And I'm learning from just answering other people's questions. So my name is Zabrina, and I'm in Yifat's Action Heroes group. And I'm in the beginning stages of starting a business. My focus is women who are on I'm encouraging women to pursue their purpose and their passion. But I'm starting out with I want to start out with self-care, because I believe that you have to focus on yourself, reconnect with yourself, and familiarize yourself or refamiliarize yourself with who you are, what your passion is, what you like, what you dislike. So the women that I'm so nervous. So these women are women who put their lives on hold to take care of others, their wives, their moms, their sisters, and I want to lead them on a journey of self-discovery. I want to create a supportive environment, sisterhood, or membership area for these women to connect so they can empower one another, support, encourage, and provide accountability on their journeys.
Sounds good so far. Now,
okay.
Do you like, because I could give you the business model, like what's the specific question? How can I help you?
Okay, a business model would be good because there's so much going on. Now, what I've done so far, the only thing I've done is some market research with women about their about self-care. And the leading answer for them not pursuing or taking time for themselves is that they don't have time. So we're all starting in the group with an opt-in for a webinar, so to speak. I decided to pursue the avenue of self-care and giving them quick ideas for easy self-care. Now, I think that I want to pursue self-care first to lead them on this journey towards self-discovery, so they will know who they are and what they want to do with themselves from this time forward in their lives.
I think
Because
what
a
you're
lot
asking,
of women,
right? You're asking like, what is the hook for the webinar that will be
yeah,
like,
what is the hook for the webinar?
so that
But
they can go
then
in?
how do I lead that into this self-discovery journey I want them to join me on?
Okay. So you are in luck because a good friend of mine is in a very, very close woman in my life is in a very similar niche and just starting out. So I get to coach her a lot on this one.
Oh,
And
wow.
you have one big problem that's also your biggest solution. That is, they don't give up about themselves right now. And that's
right.
That's why they're suffering. So the first part that you have to solve in ads and the messaging and stuff is actually make them like take a good look at themselves and realize, listen, I know you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. I know you're working 16 hours supporting other people, whether it's your family or whether you have a job in health or healthcare or any other supportive kind of thing. And I get that you've been taught or you've grown accustomed to believing that only if you work hard at helping others, everything is right with the world. Otherwise, everything breaks down. They usually had experience where they didn't do the next 5% after they already have given 120%, and something exploded. Like this is like the scenarios that they have in their mind when they come from fear. And the idea that you have to give to them is not only like self-care is too late in the game. They don't care about that yet. You have to make them realize everybody you care about will be let down by you because you're going to break down at some point in the near future. And the fact that you're here right now tells me that it's going to be either sooner than later, and you're feeling some of that already. And all you have to do is give me N minutes of your time in order to show you a better way that will not only make the lives of your families better, but that will give you finally the time to breathe and to realize who you truly are, because I know how you feel. And then you tell a little bit about your story and say, listen, the most painful thing for me to admit to myself is that one of the reasons I was working so hard at helping others wasn't so much just that I cared. I do care and I still care, but it was that I basically had forgotten what else life could be about. And there's a huge part of life I was missing out, and that was really detrimental too. And then you go in what they're missing out on. Their relationships suffer because they only define themselves about the work that they do for others, and if they're not helping out, they're actually feeling like they're not doing enough. Their self-worth suffers. Their careers will suffer, their relationships to their spouses, just as much as to their kids will suffer. Their friendships, they don't have time for them. So you lead them through, listen, everyone you're doing this for gets less and less and less of you because you're completely overworked. And I know it's hard to believe, but again, we're still at the ad. If you give me the time, or we're in the beginning of the webinar, then it's also hooked to the rest of the content. If you give me the time today to actually go through this, then you will see that there's a better way, and where you can actually like get that time back, rediscover your purpose, and rediscover what else you're meant to be and meant to do in this life. Because I guarantee you, it's not just what you're doing right now. And you've been knowing this for, if you're honest to yourself, probably years, if not decades. And I am here to tell you, enough is enough. The buck starts with you, or like the beginning is right now with you. You have to start with yourself. And I know that sounds selfish, but it's the only thing you can do not to be selfish. And then in the content of the webinar, you have to make the differentiation between helper syndrome and rescuer syndrome. It's super important for you. I actually had a rescuer syndrome. I was recently told what that actually is. I didn't know. And I fixed that. And the helper syndrome is already bad. That's when you constantly only get good feelings from helping out people, but at least you're willing to work on the basis of, hey, I'm okay, you're okay, but you have this one thing where you're not doing so good, so let me help you out with that. That's technically fine, right? If you have value to give, that's good. Rescuer syndrome is, I'm okay, you're not okay, and I'm consciously seeking out situations that I can go in and fix, because that's the only time I still realize I'm doing something good, because I'm so focused on my role as rescuer, constantly fixing other people's lives. And this is exactly what those people do you just described, right? They're just constantly helping out, fixing other people's lives, serving others, but to the detriment of their own health, to the detriment of the relations to their closest ones. Once you make them realize that, you can then take them into realizing that, okay, so this is not good. What else should I do? And what you should do is stop obsessing about finding ways to fix other people or finding ways to overwork yourself, and just be okay with doing 100%, not 130%. So doing 12-hour days, not 16, or 8-hour days, not 12, and then taking half an hour per day on whatever you want them to spend time on. And this is probably being in the community, just interacting with people who realize that they have this thing going on in their lives, and being guided by you would probably help. Business model would be, I guess, like a mix of course with some exercises that I can do in self-care. There's lots of things, and then a little bit of coaching with you, but I would keep it low. I would just go live in a group and then have people maybe relate to that, or be in a Facebook group or anything like this. And then I would upsell to a bigger group where it's about people who already discovered what they want to do, but need guidance in order to get there. And those are the people you can actually take more money from.
Okay.
Awesome.
And thank you.
Now, this was a lot, and this was like compressed information. So please watch the replay again, because I know once you start,
I plan on it.
this will make a lot more sense. But there was a lot of things I tried to cram in there.
Very good. Thank you so much. Wow.
I'm going to bring you now one from your own industry of where you actually made your big bucks. And Natalie has a very, very interesting concept of weight loss. Well, more of the issue of why people are doing it, and then how she's going to fix it. So Natalie, hop in.
Can you hear me okay? I got a new headset.
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hey, Thorsten. Nice to see you. Yeah, I am a coach of a program that I took, and it worked. and it's based on real food, kind of seasonal eating. And so I have coached a small group or a couple of small groups and have had success. But what I want to do is build an add-on program to that coaching system for an additional cost, as well as I'm struggling with two things. The trying to differentiate myself from all the noise out there, from all the other health and wellness shake systems, and also I'm competing with lower prices from corporate because they're actually running the same program through Mindvalley. If you know what Mindvalley is. So they're running that same program at a lower price through Mindvalley with a lot more people. So I'm just trying to figure out how to, one, rise above the noise and then be able to price and be competitive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but hold on a second. So what she is talking about, her program is called the Boomerang. What is it? Boomerang?
Oh, yeah, to stop the weight boomerang. So
the weight boomerang. Yeah.
the way this program works is you actually gain the skills and the tools to stop boomeranging from dieting. And so when you do gain a little bit back, you have the tools and the skills to stop the weight boomerang.
Okay, couple questions because we're literally talking about the artist industry in the world, and
I know.
And we both know this, and you must be a little bit of a masochist to choose this, but I'm the same, so I can say that. It takes one to know one. So is Mindvalley, because I know they have several weight loss programs actually, is Mindvalley advertising on the term weight boomerang is the first question?
No.
That comes later, right? Okay.
No, the weight boomerang is totally my unique language.
So you're already differently branded than what they're selling, right? Only
Yes.
if they watch both, like let's say you have a webinar and they watch Mindvalley's webinar, at the end, some of the audience would have the feeling that this is the same if you had one. Is this correct?
Well, I would be, so the weight loss program is called WildFit. Mm-hmm. And so WildFit is the actual coaching program that I coach. So do they. I would assume I need to, unless I'm going to rebuild a whole new program based on their platform.
And this is the thing, like, and this is the hardest thing to do, and this is the hardest advice to do. But if you want to stay in this thing, the easiest thing, even though it's the hardest thing, would be to find ways to use your knowledge about WildFit, combine it with other programs, and make your own program. Even if you just put it on your own videos, some worksheets, like really like take the leap and the downgrade in visual production quality that it costs. Because if you can make this something that people can only get from you, it's only your personality, your voice, and your ability to do marketing to a specific segment of your market against everyone else, which is still a lot because there's a lot of people, but it's not you against selling someone else with like way bigger pockets, selling the same thing for the low price. So
that was my idea of my add-on, but I'm totally up for that. So, and I had two things that I wanted to combine. I wanted to combine the WildFit as well as another piece of this puzzle. So that just makes total sense.
Which is?
It's actually a book called Thinner Next Year, and they advocate the same style of eating, but they also integrate exercise, which WellFit does not. And so I wanted to integrate both of those pieces, which I think makes a more holistic program.
Okay, I'm going to cheat now and I give you what works for us, but you're only allowed to use that for yourself. Otherwise, everyone else I will sue. Natalie, you're going to use this now. Find something in terms of the mental health and wellness space. Like, you know, there's been a lot of terms about intuitive eating, but also like combining this with meditation or with yoga. And because the exercise is fine, but there's a lot of morbidly obese people in the US who can't do exercise. And it's like a crime to even advertise to people who would do 3 steps and break their freaking knees. And I hate that. And I have to deal with it all the time that I work with people who have been ruined by other people's advertising who don't care. So, and lead with the other things, because you said this is a book, so you could actually, when you make a course about it, it's already unique and it's already high value. And you basically price it so that, like, the way I would do it, and I'm really a bastard about this, and I don't care at all. I would just include WildFit as a bonus, And then because the main program is already built up through the webinar to be way more important, way more like inclusive and do much more. By adding it as a bonus, you can still take all the claims from it, all the testimonials from it, and use all the marketing material for it. But you don't have to be finding yourself buying to the price point because you include something way more valuable. And then if you do coaching, like how much do they sell WildFit coaching for?
Well, it all depends. So on the WildFit site, it's like $8.95. I believe Mind Valley is down to either $5.95 or $3.95. But they're like classes of 500 to 1,000, right? I mean, it's a lot of people loading up on this program. So if I did a WildFit bonus, I could always use it as an affiliate.
Exactly, and they will probably also have joint venture partner programs where you can actually just have your assistant or yourself forward an Excel sheet to them. And so, what would you want to sell it for?
My intent was to sell it for $14.95 for a 90-day program.
And how much time of yourself will you spend with that?
My initial WildFit program was probably 80 hours.
80 or 18? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
80. It was a lot. And so price point for me, it just didn't feel like it was worth it. That's when I stopped originally.
And this is why when I have people come in who want to do weight loss, the first thing I tell them, be more expensive than everybody else and then figure out the rest. And not insanely expensive, but like imagine you have to be on top of your game in marketing. You have to really teach something valuable. You have to really care. Then you make less than a person working at McDonald's. Before that was still a thing. Per hour that you spend it. So what you need to actually figure out is how to do something that can get to $2 or $3 grand. So I would focus on that, even though it's not going to be possible in the beginning, because what you will end up with is you do tremendous amounts of coaching that have nothing to do with wealth and fitness. You are probably constantly working on the reasons why they're also getting overweight in the coaching, right? You have all these issues, social issues, self-worth issues, self-image things that you're coaching through. And I would actually go to the point where you're saying, hey, this is the one, and then we're back to holistic because it's a similar thing. You're one of the people who make your life better. I'm going to use very dumb words because in weight loss, we talk to 12-year-olds, like you always have to wait for people who are the mental capacity of 12-year-olds. It's a dirty secret of the industry. If you write higher and use $5 words, you're always putting yourself out of the market. It's not my opinion. You find this in all copywriting books on the topic. So what you do is basically go, okay, listen, your life needs to improve in a lot of areas before you start finding your comfort in food. And we can change it short term, and you're going to be right back where you started in 10 months. We can change it midterm, and you're going to be back in 2 years when something continues to go through breakup. Or we can change who's asking the question, how do I lose weight, to the point where you look yourself in the mirror and it doesn't matter how much you weigh, you love the person that you are, and you're able to lose the fat and keep it down and avoid boomeranging in the process. And then you have them and go in. And I know this sounds harder, but it's actually easier because now you're literally above the noise. You're saying, okay, there's a systematic problem, there's a bigger problem. And then with your approach, with all your knowledge that you have, how long have you been doing this?
Sorry, I just muted her because of the noise. There you go. Go ahead.
I have grandkids in school behind me. I've been in the health and wellness industry for 10 years, but WildFit for like 5.
Yeah, why said at this point doesn't matter. You've been in 3 times over. I mean, like 10 years is like, let's say 2,000 hours per year, because you strike me as someone who also reads about the topic, talks about the topic to friends if they ask and stuff like this. Go-to person in your circle of people, wherever you come to. Yes, exactly. You're a little bit of Zabrina's target group because you also like to help people a lot, right?
Right.
the thing is, you have so much accumulated experience, you know what it is really about. And when you speak from the heart about the stories that you've been through, like where you come in and you want to change the weight, but it's about something completely different and you can see that immediately, make this about who you are, make this about why you do it, then you can justify higher prices, because even if they pay it off for a longer period of time, it doesn't matter, because you're one of the very few people who sees it that way. And this is what I tell everybody, because this scales even locally. You can make 6 figures with like 50 clients a month on this one, and that you book. And this is actually doable by yourself without killing yourself, because then at some point have enough money to purchase for the other parts of the program instead of doing all the work yourself, because 80 hours per client is like insane.
Well, and it was a group, so it made me feel better, right? It was like 10 minimum. But the other piece of this is I also have experience in autoimmune disease and food intolerances and that kind of thing. And that's what I wanted to integrate as well. So there's a lot of pieces to this. So I guess just mapping it out and trying to figure out what that looks like holistically is going to be a challenge over anything.
It's actually not going to be a challenge, because, and I can already see this, your subconscious already has all the answers. And I do a lot of work with hypnosis and stuff. If you actually sit down one night and say, hey, what's the best way to combine the 3 or 4 biggest things I always work on, list them off, put it in a drawer, look at it 2 more times, and then say, okay, I'm going to solve this in the back of my head. 3 days later, 5 weeks later, it doesn't matter. With you, probably more like 3 days, you will get an answer. And it's not just going to be, okay, maybe I do this. It's going to be exact words, because you've been speaking these words for the past 9 years and 11 months after you started seeing yourself as somebody working in industry, and not just pretending to be somebody, hoping not to get caught, because we all go through an imposter syndrome period, right? And what you just said would actually also be a good way to draw people in, if there weren't so many coaches which focus on food intolerances and things like this. But you can combine it, of course. Like autoimmune disease and stuff is just like the hardest thing you can go through, right? I mean, I have a friend who has to take chemotherapy almost every week, 2 times a week sometimes, her entire life. And she's 22 years old. So I know how much this sucks. So if you go, okay, this works, whether your life depends on putting the worst chemicals known to man that are still beneficial into your body every single day, or whether you're capable of just eating whole pleasures foods and anywhere in between, and also fixes all the stuff that got you to the point where you are today. And then just put this together, talk about your story, the stories that you, the biggest stories that you had, what you're comfortable with. And I would actually not focus on trying to sell immediately on the webinar, even though it can work at that price point. Like with weight loss industry, price points are way skewed to the bottom because there's so much price competition. I would actually spend time on the webinar to get them to the point when they realize there is no competition because there's no other person doing what you do, and then get them on a phone call or have somebody do the phone call for you if you trust someone, and close them for anywhere north of 2, like 1.5 to 2, sometimes more. And then I would find a way to do more than 10 people in a group if you can, because once you do the scalable, once you start running ads, you will get bigger groups.
So are you talking like doing the program as a program, like people would buy into the program and we meet weekly and we go through that? Is that what you're talking about, over a webinar? Is that what I heard?
The program would be like you just described, and you sell it with a webinar. I don't know how you sell right now. You just get people on the phone straight away, or how do you do it?
I have run ads on Facebook before to the tune of too much money, and didn't get a whole lot. But mostly mine is word of mouth, or I'll do Facebook Lives and invite people, or I'll do a 5-day sugar detox challenge or something, or a 7-day sugar detox challenge to get them in and get them understanding what's going on, and then have them sign up after or during the program.
Okay, that's fine. And if you found a way already to run traffic profitably to that one, no. Okay.
No.
The kicker to fix that is usually how do I put this delicately?
You don't have to go delicate.
Okay, have you ever been in front of like just going live and then coaching them for real and actually trying to make people see what the real problem is behind why they're overweight, what the what the food intolerances are, they don't know. What the supplements are they need, because they're clearly deficient in vitamin D, zinc, or anything that they need for having normal, like why they're not taking enough omega-3, especially if they're vegetarian. Like really, instead of just going live, do really live coaching. And then once they experience how working with you is like life changing, and I would really pre-select the people, like have them fill out, like give them some benefit for filling out a form to give you more information. It can be as simple as saying, hey, we're gonna auction away something or give something away, but it can also be, hey, you know, we're gonna pick the people who are gonna be helped live on the show, and we're gonna give you a $1,500 coaching for free. Like it literally takes 1 minute to fill out this damn form. Please do it. You still don't get the response that you get with business to business customers, but you get some response. And then you pick the people who you know will, like, from the way that they phrase the reasons that they're going to be coming, from their history, from the amount of diets that they've done, who you know will be like heartbreak stories. And I don't mean this in a bad way, in a manipulative way. I don't like playing on people's emotions. You heard that earlier. But in the weight loss industry, everybody else is probably serving them. Almost everybody else is probably serving them less passionately than you do. So for me, everything that gets people in the door and taking action saves their lives and makes this thing called dying earlier because you're way overweight disappear. And I'm sorry that I'm being so blunt on this. I've been in this industry for way too many years. I've seen way too many bad things happen, and I'm sure you did too. So once you realize that's your responsibility, that you can actually prolong people's lives and make them be taken away from their families later in life, not earlier, then I get a little ruthless. And ruthless in this case means take stories where you know people will get like pee-pee in the eyes, you know, like where they really realize, okay, fuck, I've tried this 15 times and I don't know what to do, and I just can't trust myself anymore. And I know I'm gonna be super enthusiastic and I fail you. No, you're not, and here's why. And then you give them the real reason that they haven't been looking at. Everybody else will go. And then you have like this transformational piece that we usually put in automated webinars too, but you have it live. And after that, like you do this, after that you can do a normal coaching. You make these sessions once every 2 weeks, once every week if you can do it. Make them on a time where most people can watch. Sundays are good, or Saturdays, but Sundays are better usually. And then like 1 or 2, and then start closing. And closing really is like, listen, there's going to be 30, 50, 100 people on this call sometimes. I want to help all of you and I have a way for that, but it costs me a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it's going to save you years of your life, gives you way better experience with your kids. It's going to save you thousands of bucks in the next 2 years on food you didn't want to eat. You don't like how it makes you look, but you had to buy it in the first place. You buy it anyway, and you're going to finally start buying the clothes you want to do, want to wear, not the ones you have to. And you're not going to be ridiculed anymore by shop clerks. So how about we do this? Everybody who doesn't get a spot today, here's a button. You can get a free session with me. And in this free session, we determine whether you're right for my program. My programs cost above something, and I do this all day, every day, and everybody gets one-on-one time. I have this kind of success rate if you have a good one. Otherwise, say I love working with people, and I'm been there for 10 years. And I've been there before most of the diets that people advertise today have been invented. I can save you about how many hours you spend researching this in trial and error. And I want you to be well, and it's going to cost you nothing compared to the suffering you're going to endure if you don't change right now. Because you got them emotional, you got them rational. At this point, they will feel like, okay, I'm either a total idiot or at least sign up for the freaking free phone call. And then you have somebody else pre-screen them if you want to, who has money, and then give them a little bit of free coaching, and then the rest.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. So yeah, now I just have to have the courage to do that.
You're already doing lives, right? You're already talking to people, and you're here. I mean,
I do lives.
Would literally do the same thing that you're doing here. Yeah. Like, just do it as a Zoom call, and you're going to be good to go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Natalie, you are also in the business of changing lives. So we're starting with you, and you have all the information in the community. So we're right there behind you. We're going to finish with Jason. Jason, let me unmute you. He had a bunch of questions about webinars and what niche does it work for and how to do it. So hop on in.
Hey, Thorsten, you know what? This has been great. Yifat, as always, you knock it out of the park. So Thorsten, The questions that I had, I run a program in the public school system, and it is a media mentorship and culinary program. And if I were to boil it down, I would say it's an entrepreneurial incubator. This is going in the 5th year of running it in the public schools out here. So we've had some really great success. Now it's time for us, especially due to COVID, to really start to expand so that we can provide a solution to families, not only in a greater area, in our own area, but I'd like to expand it across the country. And so what I wanted to know is, of course, I've got to deal with, school superintendents and things like that, those decision makers. So does webinars work in the same capacity for that type of bureaucratic red tape as it does for regular businesses, where you have decision makers that don't have to go through a whole bunch of boards and all of that? That's the one question I have. I have a few more, but.
Yes and no, and I know you're gonna hate that answer, but I'm gonna give you more than that. So the yes part is yes, they work. The no part is they don't work alone. You have to give the people who need to be running around with a shortcut version a slide deck. What we do, for example, is that we dumb the webinar down into a series of LinkedIn slides and then post them. And then this is something that people can already share with other decision makers, and it takes 5 minutes to look at. And then there's usually one in the group who's more intrigued and who actually watches you talk about it in detail. And so by going through the process of creating a webinar, you actually give yourself the ammunition to make really good use of these formats that people can use. The problem that I see is, and like I'm really trying to compute this because first I've never been to the American public or private school system, so bear with me if I sound like a complete idiot. I mean, all my knowledge now comes literally from watching your TV series, so it's Hollywood's fault if I say something wrong. Like, you have to appear to not only the teachers or the deans, the people who run the school, but also there's probably, are there going to be a board of parents involved or anything? Who else? Who all have to be convinced in order for something that you do to be able to work?
Right. Yeah, I would say that my touch points would be like the PTSAs, would be the superintendents, would be the teachers, along with the parents, the students. Every one of those stakeholders, if you will, have to have a buy-in. The kids, they have to want to be in the program, so I've got to give them the information that's going to make them excited. The parents have to know that it's not just another activity that's going to waste a lot of time or money. The teachers have to know that it's got to be something that is going to enhance the learning experience so that they can bridge the gap of what's happening right now with everybody being virtual and the challenges that they're having with kids being on the computers all day. The superintendents and the school officials and all that, they have to know that it's not going to be something that's going to cut into their bottom line, and that it's also going to enhance kids being in the classroom and staying engaged. So I've got to hit all of those points. And then from a community perspective, the community has to know about it so that they can support it and encourage the kids like, wow, you're in that program? Well, we heard about that program. That sounds really great. Let us know how you're doing. And so it's a lot of different moving parts where that's concerned.
Okay. At this point, because you're literally running messaging through about 5 different people for 6 different reasons, because the kids are the people you have to convince last, but without them it breaks apart. The parents has to see the kids actually going. It's not just that they have to be convinced, they have to be convinced that the kids will make something from it. And everybody has their own problems. So I would suggest another perspective. How are you selling this right now? Like, how to get, you only have one community, one school right now, or you have multiple ones in the same community?
We have we've been in 4 or 5 schools. We just got contacted by another school district, so we're going to be opening up in that school district as well. I'm on the equity team in another school district, so I'm going to introduce it to them. And so it's been the teachers and the kids who have been through the programs. Word of mouth has really built it.
That was my first question. So who drives, who's the hook point? Who's the first uptake? Because it's usually not the superintendents who go, oh, this sounds amazing. Let's start a lot of red tape and care about this because we have so little to do. but there's going to be either the kids or the teachers. So for you, I think the best point of access might actually be the teachers, because they have the ability to influence all our areas, while the kids might just not be heard. And if you can make it interesting, you obviously have found a way already to make it appealing to teachers and kids. Otherwise, the word of mouth spread wouldn't be working. Do you know what they are saying when they get other people hooked on it? Have you been privy to the conversations? Have people told you? Because it's going to be like very specific words that they talk about it, what they say about it.
Yeah, well, we've sent out a video, and the video is a compilation of the program over the years and how the kids have built. So we see them cooking, we see them presenting, we see them, doing different projects, and we edit that together in like a 30-second spot or a minute or so, and it explains the program. We've got a 6-minute reel as well. And so we just share that with the teachers and the principals, and then they go in and they share it to the classrooms, and then the kids say, oh, I want to sign up. That's been the simplest form.
So if you want to scale that, there's two versions. The one is where you don't have to be, or nobody has to be physically present anymore because you do it as a franchise. I don't know if you've looked into that, because if you want to go nationwide, like, I don't know how you picture this. Like literally we would now have a 45-minute conversation until I fully understand the business model, and then I could give you the best way. Now I give you the best way I can right now. So sorry for that if it's not as good as an answer. But what I see here is you already found a way to distill your message into a very short period of time. You need to find a way to roll that out to other people. You know that your teachers or your kids are usually the contact points, so they will drive people to a website where they can see the 6-minute reel. And then I would actually have like if you are a parent, if you are a teacher, if you are a kid, click here thing at the beginning, like after the first 30 seconds as a hook point, so people go to a specific video for them. That would be the first thing that I would do. Because webinar are not like, we're not a one-shop-fits-all tool. Like in your particular time, you take everything we do in a webinar, but you might format it differently. Because what I would have said without the background information you've given me is this is something that would go well with like on-site seminars where people come, like maybe on a parent-teacher day or something like this, and then listen to this for another hour or something. And if you have like sort of a franchise or a messenger system where people go around and host these talks with schools, just say, hey, can we show you how to insert benefit here? 30-second video, do this, maybe there's interest in your school. If not, it's fine. Or maybe there's interest in a partner in a school next door. It won't cost you a thing. These things run themselves. Here are the benefits, yada, yada. Some of them, like even in like the most conservative place on earth that I know for this one, because Germany doesn't even allow homeschooling. I know a company that I actually work with who went through, I think, 250,000 people that way, that were in front of them as the audience of teachers and parents who were visiting these kind of things. And I know these work like wildfire as long as the presenters know what they're talking about. And then usually everybody gets involved because the parents will tell their kids to check out the website. The kids will go, oh, this sounds awesome. Or they will go, I'm massively bored. I don't care. But what you're telling me right now, that they like it. And then it's sort of this grassroots appeal where the superintendent hears about it last after signing up about it already, but didn't care in the first time. The second time they will care, because first it was just some nice event. Maybe you have some spiel where there's free food that kids cooked, or a dish that they invented or something like this. And like this is something that gives from one school to the other, or like where you say, hey, this is something that local schools have put off. Whoa. And then you would give like a webinar-like presentation live in the school. And you can, of course, also have that online and say, hey, for everybody who couldn't attend, for everybody who wants to go at it digitally, or for people who don't want to do this, this is still available. And once you have this presentation nailed down and have a digital version, what I would do is just like, there's mailing lists for schools, right? There's mailing lists for teachers, and there's discussion boards and stuff. And I would just go guerrilla on them, because of course, once they see that the concept is digital and importable and they can get it to the school, they will start trying to book you for it, because there's tremendous benefits in this one. I know that public school is have a really bad reputation, especially in some districts more than in others. And so you will be seen as somebody who just tries to give a solution to a big problem without costing anybody anything, and while making the kids enjoy the process more of going there, giving them another reason to actually show up in school in the first place, at least after COVID. And before that, there's tons of other reasons because of the media competency thing. So this is how I will weave this together. But again, I know you can do something with it, but it's not as detailed as I would want to go because we're a little bit limited on time here. But feel free to reach out to me and we'll figure something out.
All right. Yeah, that was great. And you were in my mind, and in the plan. So you were right on target. Thank you.
So I know, Thorsten, you are not taking private clients anymore. Am I wrong? Like you're mostly taking people through the process through your own program?
I do not. So I don't do one-on-one coaching anymore because if I get a client that would be suitable for one-on-one, it's usually I coach their whole team and then I have my team go on it with. So that's like in the 5 figures plus per month space, and it's usually a longer term engagement because we put a lot of resources in there. And what I really like to do is this. So I do run group coachings like this where people come in for something a little more affordable than that, and then I have courses to go along with it that I hope and also sometimes require people to consume alongside or that are part of the thing. For example, if somebody comes in and wants a webinar, like Done For You starts at like a 6-figure gig and a quarter of that is upfront and the rest is later. I'm not pitching, I'm just telling you, like I don't actually want to do this anymore. What I really like doing is give people the tools like to learn how to fish themselves and to teach other people how to fish in the same process. So what we rather do is hand out the courses, let people like help people go through them, and then at the same time coach them. In the States right now, in the English speaking market, I'm more doing the coaching because quite frankly, or like in very rare cases, Done For You, this has happened twice this year, because we're busy with a lot of projects, but also because I hadn't had time to translate all my courses into English yet. Sorry, some of them are like 100 hours by now because 10 hours of content and then 80 hours of calls like this that have tremendous value for people who want shortcuts in their particular industry.
So if anyone wants to get in touch with Thorsten, see his website, check his webinar. This is the website, amthatgeek.com/live. Right to the right of this video, you'll see a link directly to Thorsten's website where you have all his offers, you have his webinar, coaching, programs, everything else. So this has been, why the face? You're like,
That's been quite a ride. I really enjoyed all your questions. I mean, you had so amazing things. Like sometimes I come on these things and there's people asking, okay, what is a headline and how do I write one? And you guys had like amazing stuff. I mean, I would love to keep on doing this for another hour, except it's 11 p.m. over here and I'm almost dead.
We gotta sleep.
So this gives me a lot of energy. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much for being here. And guys, this is our last show for 2020. If you want to be notified when we come back live again in the next year, again, this is the website right there. Put your name and email and we'll notify you when we're coming back live. So you can also experience for yourself what it's like to think and grow rich for the 21st century. Pick the brains of the top thought leaders, experts, and CEOs and business owners in the industry. So thank you so much for being here. Thorsten, you were amazing. Really appreciate you. Thank you guys for all your great questions, and we will see you next year. Bye.
Bye-bye.